All right. Saeed, Baaghil, Yaz, Phil. We're back on.
Why do you get to say your last name, but we don't get to say ours?
What's your last name?
Yaz Yazicioglu.
Phil McKenzie.
No, okay.
Start from the
All
beginning.
right.
It's fucking
Saeed, Baaghil.
Yaz Yazicioglu.
Phil McKenzie.
We're back. Yaz leaving today, and Yaz, it's all yours.
Well, my name is Yaz Yazicioglu, and I am a consumer psychologist, and I am also a proud member to be part of the Core Code, like all of you. And we're going to start today's discussion with, as you were describing, futurism and how best top-level CEOs, executives can actually better bring in futurism into their working conditions, their environment, their company, and how they can make it a part of their ethos or their culture. That's what I like to start off with.
Perfect.
And I suggest that we would start off with first round is that, number one, what are one of the most important assets to be able to embrace the future, to be able to take as a top-level executive something into your company that will progress it further as based on technology, know-how, or as you were saying, soft skills?
Yeah.
What are these elements that they must be able to do?
I think one of the biggest challenges is the definition of futurism. You know, it's like what we talked last time about change. Change could be a change of CEO does not mean change. You know, so what is the definition of futurism?
Good point. Okay, I take futurism to be something. Well, first of all, right now we're experiencing exponential growth in many, many industries around the world, especially in technology. So futurism is taking into not the traditional means of how things have progressed over the last 200-300 years, incrementally, linearly. I don't think that's really futurism. A great quote from my perspective of Henry Ford saying futurism is kind of like when asking customers at his time what would be a better, form of transportation, they would have said faster horse. So futurism would be, it's not going to be a faster horse, it's going to be a car. Mm-hmm. That to me is futurism in a sense. To take something that would be the traditional thing that everyone would expect, but to take it beyond what they even knew was existing and applying it in such a way that's going to benefit all of mankind, all of society in every way. That's to me futurism. Today's examples are best exemplified by working structures. The classic legacy structures of top-down pyramids of CEOs is being slowly but surely stopped. You see it in all of the big, huge companies, Google, et cetera. They're all there in the front line. There's no one office set aside for the CEO. It's easily accessible. They're always on hands-on people. That's a form of futurism, taking a company's working conditions into a different element. Another futurism could be taking the existing product or service of a company and completely revamping it so that for the next 20 years, considering all the new technologies and various things that are coming out. Applying crowdsourcing, applying community, applying algorithms, dashboards, applying structure of existing internet. All of these things are used to me to describe futurism and how a company must incorporate them in the business going forward.
But what threatens futurism?
For me, I think the biggest threat of futurism is complacency, fear of the unknown. Obviously, I think in the business in the business cycle is some way of form stopping the existing business flow or its process and having lower gains for a period of time while you adapt to a newer system. I think that's the biggest thing that keeps companies.
Also, bureaucracy. Bureaucracy kills futurism. Yeah.
How do we find a way to, in a way, better incentivize thinking about the future? The future by definition, whether you're looking in a moment-to-moment sense, i.e. every moment that we have is a moment in the future, right? From a theoretical perspective, or you're thinking organizationally, a longer time window, a longer time horizon, whether that's 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 50-year. There's a certain level of hesitancy to want to embrace those sort of ideas. And if you're the average CEO, meaning someone who's going to be in an organization for, let's say, an average of 5 years, maybe 10, how incentivized are you to really look at the true future of an organization as it relates to how it intersects with the larger society? That might not be part of your mandate to do that.
True. But let me ask you this. Looking back a bit, you've worked for Goldman Sachs. How did Goldman Sachs embrace futurism, for example?
Yeah, at a firm like Goldman, where your entire business is pretty much looking out at the future. Again, that those measurements of what the future is can be second to second, but you're dealing in an environment of uncertain information. And that's just the very nature of trading, right? You don't know. That's why markets exist. Most organizations are not built to really think like that, right? They're built to actually think the opposite, where they're looking for having the most information that you can gather about a particular set of circumstances before they make a decision. Trading is the opposite, having some sort of mix between imperfect information and managing risk, right? So it's sort of a different matrix. But specifically to Goldman, and I think a lot of financial services, they think about risk in terms of, or they think about the future in terms of market risk, right? Like, what do particular markets or sectors look like, and how they are best prepared for, Six Sigma type of movements in terms of risk. So the last financial crisis model in 2008, financial crisis rather, you saw where that Six Sigma model went wrong. Right, because everything.
So I say Six Sigma is something I haven't heard in a long, long time. You know, that's basically
just sort of 6 iterations out. It's not the traditional production term of Six Sigma, but you can think about it that way in terms of managing risk. So a lot of the future is predicated upon understanding what happens when everything starts to happen wrong.
Yeah.
How are you best prepared to handle the simultaneous meltdown of what we know as the financial.
I think that's the whole thing.
Model.
There is the paradigm from looking at things going wrong when they're actually not going wrong. Actually, things are changing. So wrong could be associated with change, which is the wrong paradigm in the first. But I think what is a great example in the stock market is that I remember I was at a Royce Park Investments Consulting one time, and there was a couple other people, but not to say any company names anyway. Point being is that was right when the internet banking and people could start buying stocks online. That's a huge step that wasn't foretold by a lot of stockbroking companies that went under because they still invested in time and cold calling and so forth. And they started realizing that the future at that time is people buying their own stocks online. So there goes a huge breed. There goes a huge swath of employment for stockbrokers in a sense. How would they take and embrace, for example, my paradigm, the way I would see it is the way they should have seen it is they should have started shifting from rather trying to contact customers to make the investments for them to change to consultants and trainers or visual people that can help them make those, like the classic saying of rather than giving them a fish, teaching them how to fish. So if they would have gone on the soft skills like you were describing earlier and taking an approach to going to customers and showing them how to do their own transactions, what to look for, what not to look for as a support there, from a consumer standpoint, that creates loyalty. Even if you're not going to pay that person one for the exchange of the service that he provides, you've learned from this person, so you're going to take this person to the next level with you. So as you start purchasing, you might be giving them feedback of information. It's like, look, I just purchased this. I think this is going to happen, and that information could then be valuable to that person to apply. So I think that was one of the things that perfect example in the stockbrokers when they started moving to online transactions. A lot of stockbrokers weren't able to embrace the future. They didn't think it was going to take to be that much. They thought that people always going to need somebody on the other end to give them some informed decisions so that they could make the transaction for them.
That questions a lot of things. Just to keep that model going, you're thinking about, what's the access, right? The actual physical access to financial information at one point was siloed, right? If you didn't have a broker relationship, you didn't have access to information. So you can say the first kind of bit in that was maybe financial information becoming mainstream. Whether that's through a CNBC or CNN having a ticker at the bottom. Like there was an idea that what was once arcane information or very specific information